So I'm going to talk today about freedom of speech in the 21st century, meaning I'm going to talk about the internet and internet policy. Mainly, I'm going to tell you a story, and most of the talk will be a story, and then we'll draw three themes from that story about freedom of speech and internet policy. So the story begins with a guy who likes barbershop quartet music. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's four guys singing a cappella in matching outfits. And this guy loved barbershop quartet, and he would share his songs with his friends through the internet until one day in 2007, when he was trying to share some songs with his friends, and it didn't work. And Rob also happened to be an amazing computer engineer. Right? I'm just a lawyer. I can hardly use computers. But he could figure out what was wrong. And what was wrong was that America's favorite cable company was interfering with it was 5 different programs online, including the one that Rob wanted to use. And they were doing it secretly. And this was actually a really big deal. So it's a big deal for several reasons. Comcast is the nation's largest provider of internet service after all of its mergers. And it was interfering with some of the most popular technologies that people use to share lots of different things: data, video, audio. Some people use these technologies, one of which is called BitTorrent, for illegal purposes. But this is a site for downloading illegal movies. But a lot of people use it for lawful purposes, including Rob, and including news organizations and TV outlets that distribute high-definition TV through the technology, through Miro. NASA distributes images of the Earth from outer space through BitTorrent technology. And Amazon used this technology for software developers, just basic technology for sharing things on the internet. And traditionally, the way the internet worked was that you could use whatever computer program you wanted, go to any website you wanted to go to, without the permission of your cable company or your phone company. You didn't have to ask, Comcast, can I use this computer program? Right? The internet was not like cable TV, where your cable company packages some websites and some computer programs and then charges you extra for premium websites and programs. You could use anything you wanted. And so what Comcast was doing, and they refused to stop, was going to be a test case for the future of the internet back in about 2007. Would the internet become like cable TV and more controlled by the cable and phone companies, or would it be more like a general purpose infrastructure as the internet had always been? And you know what happens next. If Comcast has their own specialized internet service with only the programs that it prefers, AT&T would have their own specialized internet, Time Warner, Verizon. We wouldn't have one global internet. We'd have all these different competing internet services and preferred providers of search for each one, or any other content. Oops. So academics and advocates called for a legal response. They wanted a response to address a sort of problem in the market. Right? Our free market system works with the assumption that corporations follow their interests, and when those interests don't align with ours, we speak up, and then we pass a law to sort of benefit all of us, that the system works for us all. And every day, lots of laws govern our action, hopefully for our benefit. And the law that was proposed, this legal response, people call network neutrality. So it's a pretty geeky term, but it's a very straightforward concept. The idea is that the internet network should be neutral among different computer programs, software, websites, and it shouldn't pick favorites, it shouldn't block some. The network owner, Comcast or AT&T, should just provide neutral access to everything on the internet. It should be like the electricity grid, which you can plug in anything. You don't need special permission to plug in a Panasonic TV or a Sony TV or a Dell computer, or Mac doesn't need to make a deal with Detroit Edison and every other electricity company to simply sell a product. Right? So you can plug in a toaster, a TV, right? That is the idea of a network that is neutral. Okay, but knowing the legal response is only half the battle. Right? The other half is the battle. And this battle takes us to Washington, D.C., the seat of our government, where laws are made. And this battle is fought generally by lobbyists, media consultants, and lawyers. And this battle that we're talking about involved the future of freedom on the internet. And it involved billions of dollars, perhaps. So, I mean, conventional wars have been fought by small nations over less at stake. So, in Washington, D.C., right, this isn't to say the fight was quite fair. Right? If you look at polls, I think 90% of Americans think that large corporations have too much influence in D.C. And these corporations are among the most powerful in D.C. They have billions in revenue, they have armies of lawyers and lobbyists, they've been heavily regulated, so they know how to use the system to their advantage. Nonetheless, a lawyer in D.C. had a crazy idea, and I know you're thinking net neutrality is not a crazy idea. Right? What these guys want to do is a crazy idea to the internet. But a lawyer had his own crazy idea, which was to take them on. He was a lawyer for a small nonprofit called Free Press that does media and internet issues. And they organized a coalition called Save the Internet that works on net neutrality, and it has 800 organizations from Move On to the Christian Coalition. So it's a wide-ranging group. And the lawyer filed a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission with a small staff and the help of some advisors. And what I want to emphasize is there was nothing special about this lawyer. You guys saw, really special and amazing people speak earlier today, Jared Gessner and others. Nothing special about this guy. Never handled a case before. I'd been 4 years out of law school. Another lawyer who was a veteran called me and said, "I'm going on sabbatical. Would you mind writing a complaint?" So, wrote the complaint for consumer groups, not for powerful companies, and for some law professors, including one at Harvard and a few other schools. So, nothing special. So what was special about the complaint is that 20,000 people also filed email complaints. I mean, nobody would have cared what I thought or these professors thought, but 20,000 people were calling for action at the FCC. But still, in DC, that was considered not quite good enough. Everyone thought that this complaint and all these complaints would be ignored. And if you were betting, that's what you would bet. And I even showed the complaint to the Associated Press's reporter in DC who covers the FCC, and he refused to write a story because it was clearly going to be ignored. And then they weren't ignored. Right? As it turned out, after several public hearings, thousands of pages of legal filings, sleepless nights for everyone on my team, and a lot of public involvement, we actually were able to win this case against all odds that helped set precedent for the internet. Now, let me spell out the implications. So one, that decision that we won at the FCC was eventually thrown out in a court on like a technical issue of jurisdiction. But in the end, we ended up winning, the public and the consumer groups, because we stopped these actions by Comcast. And had we not stopped them, Comcast would have perhaps interfered with other technologies, and all the other companies would have followed suit. Today, it's possible that the internet that we have wouldn't be one unified free internet. It would be several different controlled internets, different services. A few months after the Comcast decision, the stimulus bill had $7 billion for build-out for internet into unserved areas, and all of that money was conditioned on a net neutrality condition. They had to be neutral networks. Hillary Clinton has boldly stated that a pillar of our global foreign policy is internet freedom, that citizens around the world should control the internet, not governments and telecom companies. Hillary has been great on that issue, and the entire State Department. And then the FCC adopted a rule, a net neutrality rule in December of 2010, which could have been stronger for us, but probably would have never happened without the Comcast case and has some basic protections. That rule is being appealed, and it should be stronger, so the fight continues. So that's the story. Okay. So here are the 3 themes I'd like to draw out. So 1, the architecture of the internet is not permanent. It can change, and there are people who want to change it in different ways through law and through technical changes. So at the moment, the internet generally has an architecture of freedom, and it could have more of an architecture of control. And the issue I gave today was net neutrality, but there are other laws out there that could limit or increase your control. Paul Courant talked about copyright earlier today. Privacy and monitoring is also an issue. Spectrum allocation, cybersecurity, the trade-offs between security and freedom on the internet. All of these issues will impact the freedom of the internet and your freedom. So 2, the internet empowers you. That's one of the goals of the story. Right? It makes you stronger. It's like that mushroom. Right? So the internet empowers you. It empowers you not only economically, not only culturally, not only romantically, but also democratically. And the internet empowers you because it's the basic infrastructure for all of the First Amendment rights at the heart of our democracy. Think of freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of petition, religion. All of these things you do, and the internet empowers you to do them. Think of ideas worth spreading. Right? The internet lets you spread your ideas and get them out there, whatever you're most interested in. Right? If you're passionate about the economy, the bank bailouts, the wars we're fighting, childhood obesity, poverty, whatever issue you really care about and devote yourself to, the internet usually empowers you to spread the message in a way that you couldn't on TV or newspaper. And I don't know if any of you remember life before the internet. I mean, it kind of sucked before the internet. In terms of freedom of association, the internet can help you organize with other people. You're no longer an unconnected individual who can't have as much of an impact. And so if you can organize with others, right, nothing can take on organized power and organized money like organized people. Right? We've seen examples around the world, in Egypt, which Daniel will discuss later today, in Tunisia, all across the Middle East, and even closer to home, we've seen the internet used for lots of social activism and to change things. So the analogy I used is to Archimedes, who's an ancient Greek guy who clearly would have loved the internet if he had it. And Archimedes was a mathematician, and he said, give me a place to stand, and with a lever, I can move the world. Right? The internet is pretty much the lever of Archimedes that we were looking for. On any issue, you can help move the world with the internet. It empowers you. And I don't want to be all roses. The deck is still stacked, but it would be a lot worse without the internet giving you the power to organize and to speak. So theme 3 is simply this. Whatever issue you care about, it probably relies on the internet. And so this is your issue as well. It's an issue to pay attention to, and even if you thought you weren't interested in internet policy until today, you realize that you might be. Here are some books that got me involved. This is the organization I was the lawyer for. This is an organization, the New America Foundation, that has an Open Technology Institute that works on these issues. And what you should realize is that the internet could be changed and could be less empowering, could be more of a tool of control than of freedom, and that your involvement is necessary. Right? No one would have listened to me without the involvement of the public, but that if you care about any issue, you should also care about the First Amendment issue of our time, internet policy. So thank you again.